I head west this week to try and get my eyes on some of those giant Kansas whitetails, come back and do some of our off-season management projects.
Growing Deer TV is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops, also by Reconics, Trophy Rock, Muddy Outdoors, Non-Typical Wildlife Solutions, Eagle Seed, Nikon, Winchester, Redneck Hunting Blind, Dead Downwind, Antler Dirt, Lacrosse Footwear, Scent Master, Bloodsport Arrows, Prime Bows by G5, and Outdoor Edge Knives.
You may remember a few weeks ago, AJ and I came out scouting the southern part of the proving grounds, see what management projects we could stir up. We had that heck of a deer trail back there behind the truck. We found this nice bottom field that we're going to try and transition into a food plot, but we noticed one problem. This area is a nice bottom field and it's starting to be invaded with honey locusts. So before it gets out of hand, we're going to head in and eliminate the problem. First, we're using our traditional hack and squirt method. We're taking a sharp hatchet, hitting the tree at a 45-degree angle, opening up just enough to get inside the bark. Just inside the bark is the cambium layer, or the living part of the tree. And that's where the nutrients are transferred up and down the tree and where we want to get the herbicide. Unlike treatments in the past where we use glyphosate, honey locust is a little tougher to kill, so we're going to use pathway herbicide to get a higher kill rate. And a good rule of thumb is, for every 3 inches in diameter of the tree, you give it 1 hack. So since this is under 3 inches in diameter, it gets 1 hack. Over 3 inches in diameter, and I'm going to give it 2 hacks on both sides of the tree. Give it a squirt. Another common name for pathway herbicide is Tordon RTU, ready to use. The second technique we're using is the cut stump treatment. We're using this technique on the interior of the field because we want to cut the tree and get it off the field as quick as possible because we plan on planting a food plot there this spring, and honey locusts are notorious for giving flat tires. We're going to give it approximately 1 squirt or 1 milliliter of herbicide and treat the stump. A quick tip for treating our stumps is using a foam brush. This helps us use our herbicide more efficiently. When doing management practices like this, it's always important to use a correct herbicide to avoid major problems. With these honey locusts out of the field, we're one step closer to having a tremendous food plot in the future. Earlier this week, we received a phone call from our friend out in Kansas. He told us he's been seeing a lot of deer routinely using his standing Eagle Seed beans. I didn't hesitate. I packed my gear and headed west. As we approached the field, there were probably 100+ turkeys in the beans, and I had to start fighting back those daydreams of spring turkey season. As the evening progressed, more and more deer started making their way to the beans. As we watched these deer feed around in the beans, we noticed they were nervous about something. Suddenly, the deer all threw their heads in the air and began to run. These coyotes made their way through the field and into the tall grass as if they were just teasing the deer. This is a great example of how the presence of coyotes can affect a deer herd, especially this late in the winter with temperature, weather, and many other variables having the deer run down and stressed. Watching all this unfold stoked my fire at the importance of predator control. It can be expensive to buy new traps year after year, but if you give these the proper maintenance, you can have them last for years to come. Once we brought them in from the field, we're going to spend a little time with a steel brush or some steel wool and scrub on them a little bit and try to remove as much rust and paint chips as possible. We like to use a white rust preventative paint. It helps eliminate rust in the future and also adds a curiosity factor for predators. Another important thing to do is, like on these Duke number 4s, our coyote traps, is remove as much dirt, junk from the trap as possible, because that will cause rust in no time. We're trying to get as many years and as life out of the trap as possible. Once we finish knocking all the dirt and other debris out of this trap, unlike our Duke dog proofs where we paint them, these will be dipped in wax, hung on the wall, and ready for next season. Hopefully the polar vortex will give you a break this week and you can get out and ease your cabin fever, maybe even find a shed or two. But more importantly, remember to do it all in the glory of God. Thanks for watching GrowingDeer.tv. If you want to keep up with us throughout the off-season as we start checking off a few more management projects, go over and check out our Facebook and Twitter page. Some of you may be wondering what happens with the herbicide once it's placed in the tree or stump. How was I going to say that? As quick as possible, because once... Nope, I don't want to do that.